It is so fascinating that this camera can print over $1 million over the time that I've owned it. To think that $1 million worth of projects, over $1 million worth of projects, was pushed through the sensor on this camera. I find that very fascinating. But the point I want to make today is that it wasn't about whatever I spent on this thing. Because in these days, it's very easy. You can shoot it on an iPhone. But what I'm going to talk about today is how when you position your brand, your business, and your offer in the right way and genuinely bring values to customers, that these things become genuinely a money printing machine. This is based on working with hundreds of the top performers in the industry. And it's taught me a couple things. But most importantly, it's taught me that the things I used to fuss over in the beginning don't ultimately matter that much. And in fact, I don't even get the time to really use this one anymore because of its weight and whatever, it's cumbersome. You know, for the camera whiz that's out there that's listening to this, you know, I like shooting on my A7C2. Form factor's phenomenal. Does the same job. But when you position your offer in the right way, it gives us the ability to harvest really good profits out of the business, out of the camera. And so how do we position ourselves? And I touched on a few things, but brand and service to customers are the two most vital things that we need to consider when it comes to charging for a property video, when it comes to actually extracting money out of this business, if it is something that we want to make into a career. And I was chatting with someone this morning actually, who we're chatting with, who's jumping into the program. And he was mentioning how the way in which his competitors are positioned and the way in which the industry is going is more towards, being unique and really fussing over. And, I heard the story he was trying to tell me was that, people spending in excess of 8 to 9 hours editing one reel. Now, that's cool. And there's a place in the market for that. But when scaling an operation in excess of 100K a month with a team, it's not the right play. And in fact, it's just distraction. Hence where we fit in the marketplace. And I guess what our focus has always been to how do we deliver at a world-class level faster and more efficiently than anyone else in the market. But again, like we've spoken at length many times, it really does come down to having oxygen in our business, first and foremost in the form of profit. So we need to position our business. We need to position our business in a way that can extract a decent amount of money for the property video that we produce for the client. Now, when we position the property video as just the video, when we sell it based on the specifications of the camera, which is what I hear all the time, people going and selling to real estate agents based on the fact that I'm going to do a 4K video, I'm going to do, we're going to shoot in log and we're going to color grade it and we're going to do all these things that the client just doesn't give a fuck about. The client doesn't even know the difference between 1080 and 4K. Now, I used to think in this way. In the early days, you get stuck as a creator in that doom loop of thinking that those 1%ers add value to the end client, but they truly don't. It's important, first and foremost, when we're selling to real estate agents, when you make this one shift in the way in which we position it, it allows us to go from charging $300 for a property video that's the same as everybody else in the market, or extracting in excess of the $1,500 to $2,000, which in today's market is very easy. I mean, we're working with guys at the moment who are, 18 years old, shooting on a $2,000 camera, charging in excess of $2,500 USD per project, delivering extremely fast and getting repeat work. The way in which we need to sell to real estate agents is not the flight. We cannot sell the flight. What we need to sell is the destination in which we're taking the real estate agent. And let me explain. When we sell the flight, or when the airlines sell you the flight, they're not selling you the engineering of the seat. They're not selling you, the foam that was used in the seat and how comfortable it's going to be and, whatever. What they sell you is the pictures of Santorini, the destination in which they're taking you. They're taking you to the destination. The same way in which when we position property videos as the destination in which we're taking the real estate agent, which only can be defined by a conversation with the real estate agent themselves. It goes from being a $300 nice to have to a $2,000 need to have, must have. Because the content that we produce on a property campaign is pivotal in the agent's process. So where I see through just working with hundreds of real estate videographers, the first thing that I get them to do is I say, sell me this video. Sell me your video. I've done this to hundreds of people. And the first thing they say is, our point of difference is, we've got cool videos and, we shoot in 4K and, we track select and we do custom sound design and all this type of stuff. And the problem with this is they're selling the flight, not the destination. But more importantly, the problem and where the industry has seen a massive pinch is in the fact that because the quality and because everyone can now create something that is at this extreme level, what happens is nobody's different, meaning nobody can charge based on being a better video. Whereas back a couple of years ago, before any of us were in the market, and before it was quite difficult to create a property video, now it's never been easier. It's never been easier to create something that's flashy online, but it's never been harder to actually extract the profit and actually charge for it. This is the problem. And as people feel that pinch of, hitting that ceiling of quality and hitting that ceiling of like, how crazy can we go? Where there's just no more left. So you're just competing on doing like better. But in my opinion, I think the simplicity is key, sticking to fundamentals. But, the crazier it gets and the more psychotic it gets, and the more that people are prepared to do that at a lower price to stay in business, what we're seeing, observing over the last 12 months, is that it's become an amplified race to the bottom. But the people who aren't brought down by this particular scenario, the ones that aren't selling on the video quality, but are selling on the value we bring to the real estate agent. Now, how do we extract the destination? How do we actually find out the destination in which we take real estate agents? Well, it comes through conversations with our clients. When I speak with real estate media companies and real estate media agencies who are actively selling video and content in the marketplace, I always ask them, have you ever asked your clients what their goals are? And not just talking about like, I want to list more properties. 9 times out of 10, no one can give me a straight answer and say, I've asked my clients and this is what they're looking to achieve. And what you'll find is that when you start to ask clients what exactly they want, particularly real estate agents, you'll start to find some common trends in their responses. In the hundreds of people that we've coached, they've then gone out and had conversations with hundreds of agents themselves to then us observing, I guess, the feedback from these conversations. It's clear to see that there's many key drivers or some consistent key drivers in the responses. That being, just to name a few, which we won't have time in this video to run through all of them, but essentially what the feedback is want to be top of the market. I want to be perceived as the best in the market. I want to win more listings. I want to hit a, X amount dollar value GCI this year. I want to become area specialist in this particular area. There's a competitor who's a little bit better than me, who's pinching listings from me that I want to beat. So on and so forth. And it may be, I hate this in sales, but essentially even digging deeper into the fact that what are their personal goals and why do they actually exist in the business in the first place? Why are they actually a real estate agent? What drives them? What are their goals and where do they want to go? Because understanding where they want to go allows us to see if we're even the right fit to work together. Because the problem with selling just the flight, selling just the video itself to an agent who doesn't really have a goal, you've just sold it on the fact of you doing a job. Essentially what happens is you get kind of shoeboxed into just a kind of medium to low paying job. You're basically just working for the real estate agent. You're just pressing a button on the camera and shooting, making some stuff. And where I find people, particularly staff members that work on behalf of a team, be so instilled with passion and so instilled with the passion to continue to push the projects further and faster continuously, is when they feel, or us as creators feel, like we're genuinely adding value and getting results for the client. When you're genuinely delivering results for a purpose, and when you exist for a purpose, you see a difference in morale with not only your team, but whether yourself as a creator. It's a completely different animal. And I've seen this shift between people who went from charging $300, making a few little tweaks in their offer, going back to the marketplace, charging in excess of $2,000 the next week, just by changing the way in which they positioned it, has given them the confidence, but also that internal feeling of like, wow, I am being respected for the work that I'm putting out. And so what happens is you get a lift in morale, which as a creative business sits at the center of success, I believe. The days of the all-encompassing, stress-filled, race to the bottom, cheap service delivery, all-in-one agency are gone. And the reason being is because we're no longer in a photo-centric market. We're no longer in a market where photos sits at the center. Photos is now considered as a secondary service. Let me justify. Photos as a non-negotiable is going to be on every listing. Of course we're going to book photos, but now it's never become more desired. There's never been a greater appetite for the video content, which I'm sure you all can agree. Anyone who's watching this who runs a real estate media agency, there's never been a greater appetite for content. So where companies have been sideswiped is the market has presented videos that aren't achievable in a time frame that's profitable. So we're doing more crazy shit for a whole lot less. And as the platforms demand more volume, that pressure gets amplified. And so what we really want to do is bolster our business. And I've spoken about this many times, which is building the moat around the offer, building a moat around the business, whereby as the trends and the fads come and go, the business doesn't change. Because what you sold the agent on in day one, and I hate using the word sold, but why you guys partnered together on day one set the foundation for the long-term relationship. Because that client understands from day one that we are working together towards the common trajectory. And we as media creators are the link between where they are now and where they want to go. So it's really important to understand, if you're in that position where you're caught up in the camera gear, if you're caught up in producing reels that take you in excess of 8 hours, and whilst they're cool to produce, it's a completely different business. We're talking about two different models here. But real estate media agencies and real estate media creators who want to stand the test of time and build a moat around their offer, a moat around their business, need to boil the offer down to a science and need to stop selling based on this, right? Because that's fleeting. What we need to sell on is based on destination. So have a think about your product. Have a think about your offer. Are you just the button pusher just to do a video or just to do some photos on a project, hand it off and do the job for the agent for a couple $100? Or do you genuinely fit in line with the agent's process and take agents from where they are now to where they want to go? Because what you'll find when you change this mentality and change and get really clear on the value you bring to the real estate agent, business just gets this hockey stick growth and it becomes like playing on easy mode. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. But I want to finish by saying, approach real estate agents with confidence, because we are a pivotal piece to their puzzle. We are a pivotal piece in their flywheel that allows them to gain so much relentless momentum in their business. Without us, they just truly cannot succeed. And this is not hearsay. This is based on observing hundreds of the top performers who are printing money out of cameras like this, or even not as good as this, month on month on month on month, and loving every damn minute of it, and creating projects that are so impactful in the marketplace. I'll catch you in the next one.